all right. This is Jeff Townsend, and you are tuning in. I like to say tuning in, Bill. I don't really know why, but it takes me back to like the old radio days. But the Bill DeMott Experience, the Bill legend, Billy D. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, but I'm doing tuning in. I never thought like you think that's an old term, and I'm twice as old as you, so let's not use that term tuning in anymore.
I'm thinking of like the old days where you're like, literally in the all before your phone was like hooked up to your car. You might be thinking TV. Heck, I don't know, but
you had to use the knob and turn it just to the right frequency to get the radio station you wanted. Yeah,
they don't even have CD players now, man. It's like
my son asked me the other day. We were talking about CDs, and he said, "What's a CD player?"
Oh no,
I'm done.
Oh no.
It
was really big to collect them in those books, remember?
I have an eclectic taste in music to begin with, but I have a couple 3,000 CDs in my garage that'll never be used because, one, my youngest doesn't know what a CD is, and two, I don't think anybody in my house owns a CD player anymore.
No. It's not easy to come across. I remember the Walkmans were huge when I was at middle school. Those were huge, the Walkmans. That was like life-changing.
Well, and then we tried to use those, because they had the strap. You could wear them in the gym, but you can't wear that big piece of thing and trying to lift. So you're always breaking one and replacing it, and then down the heck.
Yeah, they tried to say you could use them for running, too. Yeah, if you want them to fall on the road and break. Anyways, man, we actually, before we get into picking back up where we left off last week, we're doing a deep dive on Tough Enough 3. We left off after episode 3, I think, with Lisa.
Yeah.
Her breakdown. But before we get back into all that, I did want to ask you what you've been up to this week, and I wanted you to talk to here shortly, you can be briefly, about the video that you posted with accountability. You use that word a lot, Bill.
Yeah, so what it kind of boils down to a couple of things, the way the foundation looks at drunk, impaired, and distracted driving, right? So the three things that we talked about at the dinner banquet and on the video we posted earlier this week is accountability, the repeat offender, and then being socially acceptable. And all those things tie into each other because no one... Listen, if you're gonna drink and drive, then you should be held accountable. Well, now not only are the offenders not being held accountable, neither are the judges or the legislators who passed these bills and laws, and then not go through with the adjudication process the way things are supposed to go. So then we developed the repeat offender mentality because I got a slap on the wrist, nothing happened. It's going to cost my daddy a couple $1,000s to get me out of trouble, and we'll move on. I'll get my license back because no one's being accountable for the penalty of the law. And then that makes it socially acceptable for moms, dads, teachers, lawyers, doctors, everyday people to go out a couple miles down the road, couple cold ones because it was a long day. I had a long day at work, couple glasses of wine with my girlfriend. That's not drinking and driving. That's me relaxing. So now it's socially acceptable. And so the purpose of that was, and when it happens so close to home, meaning where we are in Central Florida, literally within 3 days of us having that, our annual dinner, there's these absurd DUI arrests going on all around us. And it comes back to being repeat offenders. We're letting them out and, doing all these things. So that's what sparks off the thing that'll get this guy Bill DeMott in trouble sometimes is I don't necessarily soak it all in. The coaching 24-hour rule. If you have a problem with a coach, give it 24 hours so you talk to the coach the right way. I don't have that. Here's the problem. I'm pissed. And this is what I put out on social media. So that's again, there's my long answer to what I've been doing this week. But it's time for that accountability process. And as we go into new legislative sessions here in Florida, I'm going to be making my way to Tallahassee, as I always do. And we're just going to be fighting for accountability. And it's got to be on both sides of that gamble,
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying is it was a reactive post because obviously, I saw it had been, we share the YouTube, right? So I saw it had been posted up there. So is it like a spur of the moment thing? You're like, I'm going to post this on all my platforms?
You have that moment of, I was working on a presentation I have coming up next week. And what happened was, in the news, a councilman here in the next county over got arrested for his third DUI.
Oh.
And when they got him to jail, he took his shoes off. He had 10 grams of cocaine in his shoe. No license for the motorcycle he was driving. So he's a repeat offender. It's socially acceptable because he's a councilman in Brevard County's district. And he heads 3 different boards. And he's this whole facade of, well, where's the accountability from our lawmakers and our people that we pay to do these jobs? So now it's socially acceptable.
Provide that. It's like a public service.
Yeah. Our leaders do it. Clearly, he's had 3 DUIs and nothing's happened. So why are you coming after me? And there's the mentality. So yeah, when it happened, I just stopped what I was doing, made that video, sent it out on all my, social media platforms, and okay, back to work.
Yep. It reminded me of like if my dad were to record a video, by the way.
Listen, man, it's one of those things. I'm a continued work in progress.
I loved it. I did want to bring that up, something like that every week, obviously, because that's what you're working on.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I did, as soon as you posted it, I saw that. So, but hey, you want to hear something exciting though? We did get an email with a question. Yes.
Oh, we're gonna do that now?
Yeah, we're gonna do that before we get back into stuff enough.
Now I'm a little excited for our first email or question. Is it a good one, or is this one I'm gonna?
I laughed out loud when I laughed out loud when I read it.
Oh man! Okay, let's have it.
Okay, so let me look here, and you're gonna love the email here. This is from Bob Orton's Cast at gmail.com. Bob Orton's Cast. That made me laugh. It says, Bill and Jeff, I know you guys are probably you're probably friends with Disco Inferno, but I must ask for your honest opinion on this. Who was more over, Disco Inferno or Fandango? And why? Thanks for your time.
Who was more over, Disco Inferno or Fandango?
Yeah. That's a good question.
That actually, if you don't get offended by the question, it actually is a good question. I think I'm trying to figure out.
I'm picturing Disco Inferno Glenn now.
How do I answer this seriously or have fun with it? And I think no matter what I do, it's going to be funny to somebody. Well, if you separate the two, who's the better wrestler in the ring? And it's Fandango. Who's the better entertainer? I think it's apples to oranges. It's different times. Disco, I feel, was very entertaining and became the ha-ha guy, where I think he could have been very entertaining and done a lot more. I feel he could have gone a lot farther. Fandango was just the opposite. He had so much more to give, and he was limited to the things he was supposed to do. And I think as the gimmick got over, that opportunity was taken from him, where Disco was happy with the way things were going, for him, because he was always in the mix or something anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not taken away from Glenn. I thought Glenn was a good performer. I thought the character was great. But if Fandango had the same opportunities at Disco, we wouldn't be having this question, because Fandango's a heck of a worker, and he, he's super entertaining. But once you get, and I'm sure we'll talk about this all the time, once you get pigeonholed into that thing, when you start to break away or start to, blossom and they don't like it, your knees get cut out.
Yeah. So the over part, man, it's hard to say. Modern era, the whole arena up dancing to his song, humming it. But, Disco Inferno definitely had his great moments. But
I think Disco would probably be over more with today's crowd of wrestling fans.
Yeah.
If he wasn't so damn vocal and opinionated.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get people to get to know the character. They're listening to him and then naturally going to go towards the negative. But I think it's two different scenarios. Who was more over? We were doing sold out arenas, WCW, but so is after the fact, I still look, okay, who's in the business, who's still working, who's still doing these things and making money doing it. So I'm going to go with Fandango's more over, with the premise of, I think Disco had a ton of potential, and if he was perceived differently, he would have been bigger, I think. I think that for a lot of us, but I think he had one of those characters that could have done more.
Yep, he was in the mix of things though, and like the Wolf Packs, I mean, he was in some good stuff. He took some. I remember when he ran out during the whole Kevin Nash, the Scott Hall came out and the whole Goldberg thing. He took a gnarly spear there.
He found his way into a lot of stuff, and that's what I mean. If he wasn't he became the new Virgil for that group. He was the
better.
leader.
He's better selling though, I would say.
I agree. Like I think Glenn was a tremendous performer.
Yeah, he could sell the hell out of it.
Yeah, people won't appreciate that because they know the Glenn Gilberti now, and not the Disco Inferno old.
Yeah, and I enjoy the podcast so much, keeping it 100. I really do.
If he had that kind of heat when he was working, he'd be a trillionaire.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Oh, well, that was a fun question. That was a pretty neat little first email.
That was a good question. Bob Orton's cast.
Oh, God.
One for the record books.
I'm going to remember that email. So let's pick back up where we left off. So we left off with, I'm trying to look here. Looks like we left off with the whole Lisa ordeal on episode 3.
Yeah.
Scott had hurt his thumb. That was pretty much so the whole gist of the episode. But we talked about the chaos with Lisa. As a recap, she had what appeared to be a mental breakdown. Got in a tussle at the house with the producers. Found herself up on the roof, got talked off the roof, went to the hospital. Parents came and got her. Yeah. Didn't know who they were. Got physical with them. On the flight back home later, she escaped, took a rental car, and for the next couple weeks, it would tag along with I don't know if it was a couple weeks.
Yeah, man, it was a couple weeks.
For a couple weeks, she tagged along with the pyro crew for WWE. Well, no, she tried to go to OVW first, saying that she had been sent there by you guys to get more training. Then when that didn't work, she did find herself backstage for several events with the crew. I don't know if it was the ring setup crew or just pyro or what.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of the crews. I know at one point she had traveled on the ref bus for one live event. So it was, thinking back on that, the hardest and while we've had kind of some chuckles in the middle of this part of episode 3, but the rest of the time, we had to keep this from the kids because we weren't unsure. But at the same time, as trainers, I remember us sitting there a couple different nights going, man, what did we do or what did we miss? Because we pride ourselves on getting to know talent really quick and doing these things. So that was a big, pull back the curtain, between Big and Al and Ivory and myself and the one producer. What did we miss? And boy, how could we have, maybe help prevent that or see that early on? But that happened so fast, man, and that's hard to believe that was only episode 3 in this season.
Yeah, we drag out the last one pretty long. We were having a good time.
Yeah,
but no, seriously, like I've coached high school basketball, and that would definitely be something where, and this is your first go at it here in WWE in the training department, and you're thinking, because on TV at least it appeared that completely normal mindset, everything seemed to be normal with her. She was struggling, but not any worse than a lot of the people.
Yeah, never.
And that evening she just snapped or something.
And so here comes the haha part of it, and there goes enhancing my reputation as the evil guy, right? Because once that started to get out, and it didn't get out in public, it got out behind the scenes at WWF or WWE. So now people are looking at me, people that have just started meeting me, and I've worked with them for a couple of years. Now they're going, that freaking DeMott's a psycho. He drove that girl crazy. And
Yeah.
we all
As a
know
reminder,
how.
you also were told that you are a trainer. Hugh Morris is no longer with the company.
Yeah.
Bill DeMott is, and so that's also where we left off there. So right now that this is your gig.
This, if there was any question before that, when they fired Hugh Morris and hired Bill DeMott, that solidified that this is my thing. And not that I wasn't all in before, but then I understood, okay, like you said, this is my gig. So now I'm twice as invested. And one, hearing your bosses say, we want that guy, in my mind, I'm going, well, that's easy because that's just me pretty much all the time, when it pertains to wrestling, as it pertains to how you train and things like that. Absolutely me 100% of the time. So I thought we were off and running at that point.
Let's kick off with episode 4 here. Episode 4 opens up with hip tosses. Big guy Chad can't quite get over and perform this one. Let's talk about how difficult this is, hip tosses, but let's also talk about how difficult it is if you're 6'9" or 10 like he is.
Yeah, because he has a lot more ground to. You would think because you're bigger, you have more room to do these acrobatics, but you have to tuck and land in a pretty safe spot. Otherwise, if you get long, the ring gets hard. All these things come into place. The other thing too is you're 6'9", and you have guys and girls in that competition that are 5'6".
Yeah,
they can't even get under your arm to hip toss you to begin with. So you're crouching down, and you're trying to find your footwork, and that just seemed to be a big sticking point for him at that at that venture of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of gaga going on up till now, I guess, as Pat Patterson would say, right? With the stuff that makes it reality TV, obviously. We saw that Scott had some struggles, but now we're seeing it with Chad, and he's just really struggling to catch on and perform some of this stuff. That's noted.
Yeah.
It segues to... Go ahead. No, you're fine.
No. Yeah, he was just a big kid, and you're trying to teach people to do something that you're not trying to do anyway. Nobody wants to fall, right? And then nobody wants to get thrown. So now you're asking him to help yourself out. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do it to you and for you. And that's when it just starts to get wonky. So yeah, he struggled. That was the first time we've seen, other than the normal, learning process, that someone else is starting to struggle in the competition.
And I think it's also important to note the safety aspect that you have as a trainer. You're accountable to that. And that's not mentioned quite as much as it was in the relaunch of Tough Enough in 2011. You were the one always saying with Jeremiah, and we'll talk about that later because that's a fun season too, but he's dangerous,
Yeah.
He'll do anything, but he knows enough to be dangerous. And this is an important thing to note here with Chad.
Yeah, just enough to not only be dangerous to someone else, but to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all have that thing about we want to protect ourselves, which puts the other person in, and in that episode, you see them running into each other, and we're trying to throw them, and balance is a big thing. So now we're getting into a little bit more of the what the viewers think is good stuff, but now we're getting intricate with these guys. And like I said, we'll always go back to that 7 days crammed into a 45-minute episode. So by the time you get to seeing what you guys were seeing, at the time, there was a lot of reps and a lot of shouting and sweating and bump cards being filled.
So it segues next to Rebecca. It's going to show some struggles with her ultimately is what this is leading up to. Rebecca says that, and don't quote me directly, but implies that God wants her to be a wrestler. She later calls herself a church mouse. Bill, I've never heard that term church mouse. I noted that. I don't know why. Maybe that's just because I'm silly. That was the first time I heard church mouse. And she doesn't feel like she can relate to the others because they don't share the same values. She's then shown dancing a little bit later in the restaurant bar countertop. Jonah eats too much and pukes. Scott got so intoxicated he pissed his pants. And this actually gets worse because emergency services were called and he was taken to the hospital.
Yep.
And who pays for this crap, Bill?
MTV. MTV had all the Everything that happened while they were shooting was on them. So I'm not. I'm gonna say I'm not sure about the hospital stuff, but I know in order for them to shoot, they had to get clearance with the hospital. So I know they paid the bills so they could get that footage.
Yeah.
That was the Rebecca thing started out very. We were concerned, and then you saw how she was out dancing when she loosened up, and then I think, and by the way, this is not a judgment in any way, shape, or form, but she was kind of portraying one thing, and yet doing another. So that was where the
Times 10
conflict
with the camera. Times 10 the way it was being edited.
Yeah, and you can't work at Hooters and in the outfits they were in, and then claim to be this, and you don't fit in with that. So it was a little bit of her trying to build a resume that wasn't really there, and then as you watch it happen, it unfolds, and so she's not who she said she was.
We'll get into it more later, but she's also having problems at home, and we will get to that later. So stuff's piling on. We're starting to see this here as we get weeks.
There's
and
cracks
weeks
in
into
it. Yep.
So next practice setting, it shows the contestants are starting to wrestle around. They're actually shoot wrestling is what I would call it. John, as we know, is John Morrison now, heard Scott and Jonah. At one point, I think Jonah was vomiting because it's something that happened. I don't know if he got hit in the throat or neck or a certain way or something. And they were shoot wrestling. Scott obviously got hurt by John, but John hurts Jonah here. Do you remember this shoot wrestling going on in the ring? It didn't look good. It looked pretty rough.
Yeah, that was them doing that stuff before we got started. Or at lunch break, that's what they were starting to do because now they were, now because they learned a few things. Now they were pros by them, brother. So they took it upon themselves to go and tussle around. And I think, is that where Jonah was getting sick because he got he landed on his head or something, right? And it made him nauseous, and that started a whole other chain of events.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But it was either his neck or head, something from John did. But let me just say this though, man, talk about John Moore. John was miles above everybody on conditioning, on strength. That guy was a athletic fella. He still is.
Which one?
John.
That
a freak athlete.
And then in that show, he has to be 40 pounds lighter than he is now.
Yeah, but you can still see how well. I mean, he's toned.
The kid was built from the inside out. He was a machine. Physically, I feel mentally, he was acrobatic. He was charismatic. He had it all. He was great from the jump. We knew episodes in that he was the man, and it'd be hard pressed for him to have failed. And nobody was going to let that happen because we knew what he had. Listen, if he didn't win the competition, that's a different story. But he was going to be a WWF superstar. Because
and that's important to note because that happens.
Yeah, from the jump, we knew that he was one. If he was the only one we took, we would have been completely happy with that because he, from the minute go, he didn't back down from anything. He tried everything. Here's the thing, it's a TV show, but we're looking for athletes, and he was so coachable. You showed him something, he watched it, and he has moments where he could act, goofy with the rest of them and all these things, but he came to be the best and had no problem being the first in the runs, being the strongest, being the fastest, not giving up, and people who could do things in repetition and do it well. You knew from the jump he was the guy.
Reminds me of the kid that we all went to school with, and I'm not saying this is the case because I'm sure he well worked out, but naturally gifted. Then you throw on top of it determination, and it's a pretty incredible thing.
Yeah.
So
he came in, his name was Johnny Blaze.
Yeah.
That's it. And he backed in. That was the running joke, was he backs up everything he says he can do, he could do. And the confidence, and it wasn't like an arrogant confidence. It was just a confidence, and here I am, and he came to win, and that's why the end result is what it was.
Let's look here. Okay, we're back taking these bumps now. You're on all fours. Jonah's really struggling here. At this point, at one point, I'm going to say he falls on your head. And you keep telling him this, Bill, and I noted this. You keep telling him he's overthinking it. Stop thinking about it. And you frequently say this throughout Tough Enough series. Explain that. I mean, it sounds obvious what it is, but it's something that you said all the time.
Yeah, if you're a pitcher in baseball, your job is to pitch strikes. The minute you start to overthink it, start to get fancy, before you're good at what you do, you're getting in your own head. You gotta just relax, because if you understand what I'm saying and you try it that way, we'd get a lot further. But you're listening to what I'm saying and you're going to do it your way till you figure it out. And in the meantime, you're kneeing me in the head or landing on the back of my neck and doing all these things. And after a while, you're only going to tell someone for so long. Relax and just do what we're asking you to do. And again, by that time, we should have been past this. So that's the frustrating part. But always reminding everybody, if you don't let me in the kitchen, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, let me in the kitchen. Let me sit down and make myself at home. And we're going to get past all these things that aren't working. But that was always it. Like, just relax and do what we're asking you to do. Don't try to put... And my whole thing, it was more of a knock towards the people filming this damn show. Because now these kids realize they're in the third and fourth week of it and they're being told, okay, this may be episode 4 or 5 or 7, whatever it is. So now they're playing to the cameras and trying to build their characters.
Yeah.
And to me, that was the blessing and the curse of non-scripted reality TV, because they caught on to these cameras and microphones and, hey, it's just challenges. And if I could be a character, people are going to love me, keep me on TV. But I have these 3 trainers that are trying to come out with a different outcome than I am. So here's where we always meet in the middle and clash and made for some really good episodes.
Jonah actually gets a proposal here. If he is able to do this, you give him like a redemption opportunity here. They will have the training in the mountains will not be as intense. I don't remember the percentages you guys threw out, but the group's really riding on him here. And we'll talk more about how these injuries and the fatigue starts to really pile up. He blows this opportunity. And so the group's very disappointed in him, and the training in the mountains is showing it's intense as always. And then after that, there's a big moment here. You guys are meeting up to discuss the progress of the contestants. These are things that you said. You say John is the most natural, Jonah is cocky, and Nick is soft. And this is the first time I'll say it, I think. Nick kind of flies under the radar.
Yeah.
And that gets to later. It gets to the point where he can't anymore. But for now, you note that he's soft, and he kind of flies under it for a while here.
Yeah. So it goes back to that thing I said just a couple of minutes ago. A lot of them started playing to the camera. He wasn't doing any of it. On the other side, he wasn't standing out, and he wasn't, showing out. So he, up until that point, you really didn't even know he was in the competition until you go, wait a minute, what's this kid over here in the corner doing? And it's not a knock on them as people, it's just...
Yeah. It's a personality thing a lot of times too, but I mean, not right or wrong, but in this particular instance, yeah.
But everything we do is personality. You're on the road 300 days a year. You've got to at least know how to get along, and be personable and because you and I have heard this from The Undertaker and guys for years. That hello and goodbye means more than any conversation you're going to have. Like, hey, brother, okay, we made another day on the road together. Just because you said hello to me yesterday doesn't mean don't say hello to me today, and don't at least show some interest in the people you're living in the same house with. You can't seclude yourself in that atmosphere, and that's the point of having them live together.
Yeah. Okay, this is one of my favorite times, and Al just does such a damn incredible job. We got to get him on here to talk about some of this stuff, Bill. You got to reach out to him. So it's cutting time. It's cutting time. He walks up and down. They're lined up, of course. We'll paint the picture here. And he walks up and down, and he stops, and he looks at, and it's incredible television here, anticipating who's going to get cut He sits them down. He coaches them, actually, as he sits them down.
Yeah.
And as we go through this here, what do you know? He gets to, we're going to say, Tall Chad. And Tall Chad is cut. We just talked about that earlier. He was having a really hard time keeping up with stuff. So he's cut. His name is spray painted over on the wall. Symbolic ending to the episode. For sure. So we're starting to needle down here, and we're starting to pick out people that are struggling. And I think it's also, and I'm not saying he didn't put forth effort, but the question a lot of the times here is, how did Scott survive? Maybe it comes down to effort and
effort,
passion.
And like I said, the 7 days you're with him, what they show is what they're going to show. But the willingness to not quit, and there's just something to the kid. And maybe he wouldn't have been a in-ring superstar, but maybe he would have been a great mouthpiece for someone because he's so awkward. There was just so many things that stood out about him, and it outweighed the things that annoyed you about Scott. So that's how he got in there. And don't forget, this is a TV show, so
yep,
this guy's making good TV.
MTV probably doesn't want you to get him off there,
right? You don't want lack of a better term, you don't want 5 farts on your TV every week. You want to see, you first of all, you need the comic relief, you need the drama, you need all these things, and we were making that happen organically. And then with Scott, he was just so good for TV, but he truly did love wrestling and he wanted to do it, and he kept showing that. Unfortunately, Everybody got to see not the best sides of him at all times. So I think he has a couple good moments coming up in this season. So
Oh yeah. And we're going to get to one here in a second. Episode 5 kicks off. Several of the contestants are showing signs of being in pain, beat up and tired. It's starting to really pile on. And Rebecca finally reaches a point where she decides she needs to go home and deal with personal things going on. Something about a house being lost of her mom. I'm not sure exactly. I can't recall. But point being, the personal issues that she was facing at home caught up with her, and she needed to go be at home.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was her mom or her aunt or someone like that. But I think the house was being taken, and that played a big part in her decisions. And I think she realized that. And again, my opinion, I think she realized that how she was coming across. She didn't want to be portrayed like that on television. Yeah. And I think she finally realized that maybe what she's trying to do is what she wants to get into. But I know there was a lot of stuff going on as far as the house or wherever they lived was being taken. And I think if I'm not mistaken, because it was a long time ago, but I think we come back to some of that drama and we talk about it because I want to say I think we got bamboozled. I'm not sure if that's correct or not.
We'll have to interrupt me later, I guess, if it doesn't get covered, because I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. And I could be thinking of something else, but for some reason, I feel like once Rebecca left, we found out a different reason why she left, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that might not be disclosed in this. I'm not sure.
Oh, then I'm definitely wrong.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Let's get through a little bit here and see. So we talked about Scott, and this is a cool moment. And this is one thing I liked about this season in comparison to the relaunch of it. They did bring individuals by. It wasn't really noted as much.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed when Tommy Dreamer stops by here.
Yeah.
Started in 1989, 13 concussion, 18 fingers broken, and he shares a story about how his dad was plagued with blindness. But after a surgery, he could see just for a few weeks, and he actually got to watch Tommy in a match versus RVD.
Yeah.
I think that at this point, the contestants are starting to realize how much this business means to the people in it.
Yeah, I think and I liked it back then, to your point, where there wasn't as many guests and superstars coming in to detract from it. But when you had someone like Tommy coming in and sharing what sacrifice really means and how hard it is, personally and professionally. I've known Tommy since he started. We came out of the same gym, same coach. I've known Tommy a long time. But he, Tommy, some people say his passion is unequaled in this business, how much he loves the business. And in that episode, Scott got to prove just how much it meant to him to be not only in the ring with Tommy to get a complete can of whoop ass opened on him, but he kind of showed how tough he was too.
Yeah, so what you're talking about here is, and I'm a big Tommy Dreamer fan, by the way, but Scott actually goes out of his way to ask Tommy to hit him with a Kindle stick. It was a pretty devastating looking blow. He said he couldn't even really speak or breathe, or he said it was the worst pain he's ever been in his life. Talk to us about a Kindle stick.
Well, again, let's go back to it, and this is the thing, and you'll get sick of me saying it. Again, 7 days, 45 minutes of television. Tommy pleaded with him, "You don't want to do this. You don't have to do this. I want it. Okay?" And Tommy looked at Al, and Al went, and Tommy looked at me, and I hit him. And, and Ivory and Biggs going, and all the kids were trying to talk Scott out of it, like, "Don't do it, dude." I can hear Jonah still say, "Dude, don't do it, dude." But Tommy, he agreed, and like, Tommy's a firm believer, and if you want to know what it's like, I'm going to show you what it's like, because that's how he got hit with it, and that's how he hit people with it, and he knocked the crap out of Scott. Like,
how does it feel though, Bill, getting hit with one of those?
You might as well. I'd equal it to if I was a pirate on a ship and they were giving me with a whip. You see all those movies where you're getting whipped and it opens up your back like that. That kendo stick, if that's tightened up the right way, there's no mercy in that thing, man. It's a lingering ache after the initial smack thwack pain. It's a lingering ache, and you feel that. And if you get it right and it's an open sore, and so you'll feel that sore the whole length of your back, or if it's across your arm. I've had them come across my neck and bend and smack me in the face and the neck. It just depends on how that kendo stick is tightened from the top to the bottom and who's swinging it. But Tommy took the old Thurman Munson stance that day and knocked one out of the park.
And he should be getting paid for whoever manufactures those, by the way, for everything that for as much as he's promoted them throughout the years. My gosh. He needs a cut of that.
And it's one of those things like, okay, if it happens enough, you build up a callus to it or you don't feel it anymore. No, that kendo stick is brutal. That I'd rather take the barbed wire baseball bat any day than a kendo stick.
I wanted to bring that up because if you're looking at it, you could be like, "Oh, it has some give to it." So I assume that was not the case. So
no, that baby was tight and it was right, and he laid into him. That was awesome, by the way.
Yeah. He had a pretty big mark. We'll move on though. They really start focusing on Jamie on this episode, how bad she wants attention from all the guys. She gets wasted, starts kissing a guy at the club. She's trying to kiss John on the way back home. They continue to talk about this for several episodes. This is just reality TV stuff right here. I mean, really.
Yeah, this is the stuff at home, and Jamie has a crush on John, and while she has a crush on John, every time she went out and had a drink at dinner or something, she was making out with someone else. And I know at some points Al was trying to treat her like a daughter, knock it off, and what the, and I get it, but she was boy crazy.
I think it might be, and I'm going back to like Rebecca or her, and I don't know their personal situations, but it could be a lot of these contestants' first time away from home for an extended amount of time.
And let's not forget how young they were.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't like the relaunch. It wasn't like the relaunch.
Right. These were young kids, fresh out of high school or going to college. And to your point, never been away from home or had these experiences. And now, wait a minute, you're taking us to like 5-star places to whoop it up, and there's cameras following us, and now I'm really going to let loose. And then someone kind of reminding you, by the way, this is all on film, and you're not gonna like how it turns out.
MTV's loving it, but Al Snow's saying, "Hey,
MTV
you might want to calm down a little bit."
Was loving it.
This fits right in. This is where it's like the real world show. You start seeing it. Okay,
Yeah.
next. Secret Circus Challenge. John dominates. Acrobatic, everything like that. Gymnast.
Yeah.
I mean,
Here, just
dominated.
jump off this and flip your body around and do it effortlessly and keep doing it over and over again consistently. He wins.
Plain and simple. But we get a special here. We got 2 guests that drop by. And this is the end of the episode here. Rey Mysterio drops by, and we will definitely talk about him more in detail one day. He tells his backstory, explains the importance of the mask. Then he actually takes off the mask for them. And Al is very stern about explaining to the group how significant that was.
Yeah, that and that's Al in a nutshell. Like I say he meaning Al, especially didn't want these things just to be throwaways for these kids. They needed to know how important not only what we were doing every day, but when especially this man comes in and does that and shows that to them, they need to understand the importance of that. Otherwise, it was just a guy who's wearing a hood and took it off. So big deal, he's one of us, and let's move on. I can do that. No, you needed to know the history and then the importance of what just happened. And those are the moments that I appreciate the most, because we try to have a lot of fun. We got a lot of work in. We traveled the world with these kids and all that. But at the end of the day, it's still lessons about what you're trying to become. And that's the one thing that Al was super, super cognizant of all the time, is to make sure we didn't miss the moments to really explain why they were there,
Yeah. Episode closes out with that. We'll go into episode 6 here. This is when we start first seeing Kelly's back is really hurting her. And this carries on, and we'll touch up on the result of this later, but this is when it starts being mentioned frequently. She's showing the excuse me. You can see that she's clearly in pain, I guess.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that more, but the team is also taught transitional moves, which is noted as a big thing for them. And Nick randomly has an elbow injury that came out of nowhere, and we'll get more to that, but Nick's elbow's hurt.
I think he got to play volleyball. Or if it was something, I think it was something ridiculous. But he came in and it was just all of a sudden he was hurt and he couldn't do anything.
He's in a sling. So we'll get to that more.
He came in out of nowhere, like nobody got a heads up or anything. He came in and he was all
this one looked like you guys had no freaking clue. You're just
like we left you yesterday, you were fine. You're coming in today and fill us in here.
And we'll get to that, but okay, let's see here. Big does a drawing to see which contestants can have a guest visit. It's going to be 2 people. John and Jonah get it. They decide to have their girlfriends fly out. Scott attempts to get in on this, says he will empty his bank, all the money he has in his savings account, which it was $3,000 or $4,000 or something, to see this girl he has not talked to since high school. He contacts her. She quickly shuts him down. All on television.
He was trying to buy the opportunity to get this girl to come to California.
She was not going for it.
But it's typical Scott. It goes back to he never rode a bike, and so he's got to ride it uphill. Well, this girl doesn't even know he's alive, but he's trying to convince her to come to California and hang out with him for the weekend.
And of course, the group has a good time with this.
And he's got to bribe his roommates to let him do.
Yeah, the group had a fun time with this one, of course. But this is good TV, of course. I mean, it really is. So then it goes to DDP. He stops by. We'll talk about him one day more. Talks about getting into the business late, which we always hear about him, which was a challenge because he was previously hit by a car. I didn't realize this. He was told he would never be able to wrestle again. He explains how proud he is that he proved the doctors wrong, and he actually stated, this isn't checkers at one point. I noted that. And then it shows Nick on a sidebar here talking about how he can relate to this conversation. He's inspired, which is very strange because of what happens next. But Diamond Dallas Page, everything I just said, it is a pretty neat story about him, and he's a guy that's really paved his own way and got himself over.
Yeah. It's Page was inspiring back then, before the world really knew his whole story And now, fast forward how many years later, he's worldwide known for just helping people not only succeed in life, but live better, healthy, and all these things. Paige has a great story, and the story comes from never quitting, and he could tell that story a million times and it would never get old. You know what I mean? There's something about that has to inspire you. There's something about when he talks about his journey that you can put it into your own journey. But they don't. I don't believe sometimes early on they deserve talks like that, because guys like me, we had to work to get those kind of conversations. But they were always eye-opening, and that was the best part about having the people that came there. If you look at all the guests that did come there and superstars, at the end of the day, if they didn't motivate you to want to lead the pack, then that was a telltale sign right there.
And in this season, it shows them physically working with the contestants quite a bit as well. I don't know if that was the case on the relaunch, but in this particular situation and what they were showing, they were helping, and we'll get into that more, but they were actually in the ring giving pointers and being a part of the training sessions. So, okay, the trainers meet to discuss the next cut. Ivory mentions that Nick has tendonitis, and Al is quick to point out that this is tennis elbow. He seems almost offended by this situation. And of course, Scott would not participate. And Al's quick, I think it was Al, was quick to quick to bring up Jamie from last season, who had a torn freaking ACL and toughed it out. This was offensive to you guys. And he's cut. Nick's cut. He seems shocked. He seems mind blown. And let me ask this, Al. Was there like a timeline typically on when they knew they're going to be cut? Because to me, why would you pull this shit right then?
No, they never got a heads up like, hey, you're in trouble, or it could be you this week.
Well, I mean, even a cut was coming. They got like a day notice, but I'm still struggling here knowing that there's going to be cuts made. Why I would then decide to go to the hospital.
Exactly. And I think it goes back to, once again, the contestants think they're outsmarting the process. Instead of trusting the process, well, I know there's cameras here, let me get some sympathy. Because here's the underlying thing is, while we're working, the MTV people are coming around and now falling in love with different characters here, because they're watching, the weekly runs and their film back and the things we're doing. So they're all picking favorites. So they're getting like pep talks from people who have no idea what they're talking about in wrestling. But to your point, that this week's a cut week and it's going to happen on this day, and you're walking in here because if I can just nurse this elbow thing and get away from doing some of this more as we get more physical and technical, then maybe I can last another week. But to your point, and that's when it's offensive, because we spent 6 and 7 days a week for 10 hours a day with them. And we were going through with them. We didn't sit behind a desk and go, do the Macarena and we'll judge you on it. We were in there with them, showing them, step by step. And so for someone just to come out in X amount of weeks into this competition for an opportunity, it's just one of those things. Well, it just kind of falls against you too. You weren't really standing out. You weren't really overwhelming us in any way, shape, or form. Personality.
We noted that, yes.
Physical, things like that. And then you come in hurt. So maybe it's the best for everybody just to part ways. And
we noted that earlier. I noted that earlier for a reason, right? Flying under the radar.
Yeah.
Then this happens. The cut is pretty easy, it seems like.
And the big thing for me is, and I say this to everyone, the big thing for me is, if you want to be in this business, then you'll be back. He's never back.
Right.
This was an opportunity. He got a good look into what it may be like. And then some people started to realize, wait, there's no cameras on us if we make it? No, just in the ring. This is the real part. But he flew under the radar for so long and then comes up with a bad wing. Time to go, because there's other people working hard.
That's how the episode ends. Episode 7 kicks off here, and they're doing physical challenge. And you have a quote that I note here. I don't have who you said it to, but to me this was significant. You say, the last thing you want to do to me is fail, especially when I know you can do what's in front of you. I noted that.
Yeah.
Matt dominated this competition, these physical activities, and this was really the first time throughout the season that Matt was highlighted in a more like in a performance manner.
Yeah.
He had kind of not been, you could see he was doing everything fine, but he hadn't been highlighted yet.
Yeah. You've got to, that's the official way of saying, if you think you're just going to skate by when we think we know what you're capable of doing, and you're just going to...
I think you said it to somebody else. Yeah.
Under the wire, when I know there's more to take and you're saving it for when you think it's important. It doesn't work that way.
I don't remember who you said it to, but I don't have that noted. But I did note that it wasn't Matt, I don't think. But it was the first time that he really stood out here. Big tells the team they're going to go to Iceland, but somebody will be cut before they leave. And that's causing a lot of stress in the house, of course, which it should.
Yeah, because now a lot of them want to go to Iceland.
Yeah. And that's one of the highlights of the show that they had done over the last couple seasons a bit.
And you said it before, a lot of them never been out of their own neighborhood. We talked about how Scott never been on a bicycle near the ocean, and now we're talking about going to Iceland.
Yep.
And again, what an opportunity for someone who's unproven. So, this is when I feel like I came in at the right time, because this was the best season to date, I think. And Iceland caused a lot of problems because now everybody's trying to plead their case and prove their worth and why they should be going. And, start the thing. I call it like the fingers start to be pointed, if I'm not mistaken, where a lot of little
Yep. So Jonah's neck is bothering him. It's a lingering injury. It appears to be from the John wrestling fiasco. He goes to the doctor, hospital, comes back. He's told this is a pretty common injury. He's going to be okay. He's relieved.
Yeah.
However, he comes back with a neck brace, returns to the facility in tears, telling the others how he'll never be able to wrestle again because the injury is so serious. He then revealed this was all a rib and his injury is minor. The other contestants had literally broken out in tears. Matt was completely devastated. John's crying. Everybody's crying, but Matt is trying to console him. He's hugging him. Matt's crying while he's doing it.
Yeah.
And then he reveals it was all just a rib. And although some of them laughed, you could tell that, hey, they really were determined to get him back from this point on.
They wanted to break his neck. He came up to Al and proposed this rib, because now these kids at this level, they're smart to the business. They're smart to all these things they've heard about and all these things. So
they start saying rib like they're marks here.
Yeah.
Rib.
Yeah. So they learned a new word. Now they want to put it into use. He told Al. Al came and told us that this was going to happen. Well, you tell me, and I'll break down in tears too, because I'll sell the crap out of this story. So this was all on Jonah. Big with everybody. We weren't in on it, but we knew about it. This was all Jonah's idea.
He did a great job selling it.
Hey, if he could have molded all that great stuff he did it to a career, it'd be great. But by the time he got to poor Maddie was just heartbroken and dude, and everything was dude. And to your point, when he let them off the hook, I was like, you're dead. Like, they were, he didn't do himself, while it did my heart good, he didn't do himself any favors with that.
Yep. So that's really the highlight of the episode. There's not a whole lot that happened on this one. The low light is this, though. You guys discuss the next cut. You say Scott is a great kid. Al responds that he takes too long to train.
Yep.
And an emotional scene, Al, very emotional. The first cut of this year where he has actually been emotional, he cuts Scott And then in a turn of events, all the other contestants are very emotional about this. Whereas episodes 1 through 3 or whatever it was, he's the most annoying dude ever.
Right.
Well, the episode ends by them saying about how much he had grown to them.
Yeah.
Everybody's emotional for Scott's exit here.
Yeah, I think he goes back to that. I can pick on my brother, but you can't pick on my brother.
Yeah.
And that was the mentality. They became as the cutting happened, they became a tighter group because there was more time they had to spend together. It wasn't shoveled out to 12 people now. There's 7 and 6 and 5, whatever it is. But Scott did. He endeared himself to these guys and girls, and they truly did. While he was their comic relief, they were still part of his group. And so, it was emotional to say goodbye to Scott, because you truly knew all the things he had learned while he'd been there. And again, I'm always going to go back to 7 days a week, 45 minutes on TV. We got to know Scott really well for the time he was there. He's like I said, I think I'd said it earlier on another episode. He was a super good dude. But he really endeared himself, and I think everybody, you had to love him. He was your guy. And while we could have fun with him, nobody outside of that Tough Enough could ever have fun with, mock him or treat him bad. He was part of the group.
He was part of the group, and he was a significant part of the show. It is sad to see him go. That's how the episode ends. Everybody's emotional. Next one kicks off. The guys are plotting a revenge on Jonah and decide they're going to spike his drink with laxative. While training, he barely makes it to the bathroom without crapping his pants. He actually asks for your permission to go to the restroom. You say something along the lines of, "Why the hell are you asking me? Just go." And he's shown running there, squeezing his butt cheeks together, the whole 9 yards. They had actually already set him up because Al had removed the toilet paper from the bathroom. Jonah is screaming out he needs toilet paper. He needs more. Well, you catch on to this. You go over there and you ask him if he's a child and he needs you to wipe his ass too. Al had gimmicked another roll of toilet paper with just a few little squares left on it. And he tells him that's the last toilet paper. He doesn't know what happened to the rest. He said, "I'm being honest. This is all you've got." Everyone has a good laugh. He comes back. They tell him, I think John had the bottle. He says, "Hey, it wasn't your fault." And his drink was spiked.
He didn't, when he was asking for permission to go to the bathroom, at one point he was soaking wet with sweat.
Yeah.
He was doubled over, and knowing what was wrong with him, trying to look at him straight face, go, what is the matter with you? What he doing? Like, stand, it's kind of like stand up, be a man kind of thing. Inside, I'm dying because he's going to explode. Those kids put more X-Lax in that Jamba Juice than you would have needed for a water buffalo. And so to make sure that he had the right Jamba Juice, which is a big drink out there at the times, like a smoothie.
Yeah.
They did it to 3 Jamba Juices. So if he grabbed the wrong, there was no way for him to grab the wrong one. And so they kept, "Hey, we better get the carbs, or we better do this." And he drank the Jamba Juice, and within, I don't know, what seemed seconds. And then that was just the fun of it, was watching him go through that. And after they let him off the hook, he still wasn't right for like another 24 hours. Like,
I bet.
And he kept going, "Bro, if I gotta go, bro," I'm like, don't talk to me that way. But it was so funny to watch them. Okay, you got me emotionally, now I'm going to get you physically. And we weren't sure if Jonah was ever going to be able to stand up again.
Oh, that's a prank that has been used in
it's great.
Several scenarios in all of our lives.